Hey, after a long weekend, I want to continue working on Firefox Focus. If you don't remember where we left off, that is fine. It was a long weekend, at least for me. And this is the PR I created today from the state we left off on, I think, Wednesday. We are migrating Focus for Android, which is a privacy browser. It looks like this, over to use one of our Android components. They live in this repository. Android components, they are a bunch of Android libraries that you can use to build browsers or maybe browser-like applications, some apps that do something with the web. And there's one important component, at least if you want to build a browser, and that is the concept engine component. This engine component is an abstraction over the actual browser engine. It can be on Android a WebView, or in our case a GeckoView, the browser engine from Mozilla. And once we use this concept engine component, we can use whatever engine we want. Focus has a concept like this where it uses also an abstraction, because we used to support WebView and migrate it over to GeckoView, but it's something custom written for Focus, and Focus is just older than the components, and so it doesn't use this component yet. The reason why we want to switch to this component is that this allows us to have Focus on the same code base as our other apps, like Firefox Preview, for example. And since other components that might interact with an engine depend on this concept component existing in the app, using this component in Focus will allow us to use a bunch of more components and replace even more code or add new features to Focus, and without writing all the features ourselves, and by just dropping in one of the components that we might have written for Firefox Preview already. So in the PR, I wrote a list of to-dos, some of the things that I remember that are still missing in Focus, and I think we will just pick one from this list and try to fix that in Focus. Still, if you haven't seen Focus yet, I will quickly show it to you. It's a neat little browser where you can browse the web, and at the end of your browsing session, you click on this trash can button and your browsing history is gone. So it's pretty nice for like one-off browsing where you don't want to pollute your browsing history, or as a default link handler if you click on links in third-party apps and you don't want to switch to your main browser just yet. Another nice feature is that Focus blocks all all trackers, for example in ads, and so it has some privacy features. All right, so let's continue where we left off. Let's see, we need to pick one, and I think one simple thing may be the back-forward navigation. So in a browser, usually once you browsed some pages along, clicked on some links, you can use the back button to navigate back in the web history. So pressing this button should get one step back, but it does not right now. We just erased the history. So let's go to the fragment and see why this is the case. And our fragment has this onBack pressed handler that we can make use of. And I think there's one more thing you need to know, and that is our components. We have like basic components, like for example a toolbar or this engine thing. And there are feature components that connect all those components together. And one of the components we integrated last time, let's see if I can find it. It's probably in a web fragment, one layer lower, is the session feature. The session is a tab in a browser, and the session feature makes sure that it listens to our store, knowing which tab is the currently displayed tab, and then switches to this tab if needed. And the thing also knows, if I remember correctly, how to navigate. Just if you look inside the feature, this is code that lives inside the component, but Android Studio allows us to read that code as well. It has an on-back pressed handler, and it does some things here, but one important one is if we can go back in this session, it will actually go back. So all we need to do is to hook up our on-back press handler with the feature on press handler, and then it should already start working. And then we can also look at the back forward navigation that is inside the toolbar. Like here's a forward button. We probably don't have a back button here, but I think in the tablet layout there is back and forward button next to the lock icon in the toolbar. And we can look at this too, maybe if I can get a tablet emulator onto the screen. Okay, let's go back to our on-back pressed handler. So the feature is one level higher. Let's quickly check if this has an on-back press method. Thank you for following. So the web fragment itself does not have an on-back press handler. You could either consider making the feature protected, for example, that the browser fragment can access it here, or we create an on-back press handler in the web fragment as well, and we will call this first. I think I would prefer to have an on-back press handler here as well for now, because we might add more things to it. So let's try that. And then we only need to call into our session feature here. And since this is wrapped in this view-bound feature wrapper, which will make sure that we clear the reference to the session feature once the views of those fragments disappear, because this feature also has references to views and we want to get rid of them once the views go away. Since that is the case, we might not actually have a feature inside this wrapper because it was cleared, so it's nullable. And we need to handle this case here. And if this is null, then we can return false because we didn't handle the back press in any case. Okay, so one important thing here is the order now. If we show a find in page bar, which is this thing here where we can search on the current page, on back press can even do this here, remove this toolbar. We have a full screen feature. If we are in full screen mode, we want to leave full screen mode. This was the same in the old code, and we can just delete this while we are here. We even check if we can go back, and then we go back. This is the old code that we removed previously, because back then Focus needed to take care of the state and whether we can go back, and needed to ask the view if it can do this. And this is now all wrapped in the state object, and that we can just access through the feature. So we can remove this here too, but this is a good indicator that this was the place where we wanted to call this. So one way we could do this now is to add this here, and if the fragment above handled this case, then we don't. We can return true here, and this is handled. Seeing this now here in this area makes me wonder if we want to expose the feature instead, because super on back press, you have no idea what this means in this context, and the order matters, so maybe move that back and actually expose the session feature. Let's try and see how this looks like. I think that is more obvious because, yeah, you see what's going to happen here. So let's try running this. Okay, so let's go to mozilla.org again. And now we press back. Yeah, that worked well. See here, the forward button is still grayed out. This is probably the next thing we could fix to navigate forward again. All right. Yeah, let's look at the forward button. Might have something to do with those methods we stopped, like can go forward and can go back. Can go back is no longer used. That is good. Go back seems to be still used. Let's see where this is the case. Okay, this is probably the button that we don't see here because it's only visible in a tablet layout. I will add a to-do to this list to remember. Navigation buttons in tablet toolbar. Make sure those work too, but not right now. And then we go and find the usage of can go forward. Navigation item view holder, refresh button, stop button. That looks like it might be this this item inside this recycler view here in the menu. And we are looking at fragment can go forward. Okay. Eventually this probably should change because in the past in Focus all state things and action things needed to go through the fragment because we called things directly on the view. Think back to the time where Focus was based on WebView. You could only call things like go back on the WebView. So that's why we always have code in Focus that calls into the fragment, and then the fragment will call into the view. This is no longer needed since nowadays with GeckoView the engine is something that is living in the app process, and we do not need to access it through any views or whatever. There are better ways to access the engine, and therefore we no longer need to have all the things on the fragment here. And for now, a workaround probably is to get the session still from the fragment. We can change this later on to ask the session manager, for example, which session are we displaying and can this session go forward. But for now we can just get it from the fragment. This session instance here is probably something we might want to get rid of eventually, but let's add the to-do here. Get rid of session reference in fragment. Okay. Yeah, that's usually how this migration work ends up. We fix one thing and add 3 more things to the to-do list. Okay. Now this should at least show the right state in the menu. We might also need to look at the on-click listener and see what this one does. And we can do this after running this once. Okay, let's see. We go to mozilla.org. The forward button is not enabled, that's fine. We go to the next page. Still not enabled. We navigate back. And it's enabled. Nice. Oops. I clicked it, but nothing happened. So let's look at the click handler now. Set on click handler this. Okay. Where is this defined? In the view holder? Yeah, we forward this to the browser fragment. Let's see, there should be an on-click method here. Okay, lots of listeners here. And here's the forward. And we commented this out last time. And as I mentioned before, like we did all the things on the view. This is no longer needed. We can now do this on, I think, a use case. I will explain what this is in a second. Go forward. Use cases like those session use cases wrap functionality in a class that gives you nice methods to do things, basically. If you want to, for example, navigate forward for a session, what would need to happen in the background is we need to find in the engine this session, because the session object itself is just a state wrapper. It contains all the properties that describe in what state this tab is in. And if you want to actually perform an action, you need to go to the engine, find the matching engine session, and then tell this engine session to navigate forward. And those are, like, in this case, probably only 3 lines, but sometimes more lines. And you wrap this behind use case classes, so you can just call, hey, go forward for this session. And then internally, this will do the right thing. The nice thing about this is you can pass those session use cases to other components, and they do not need to duplicate all this code. They will just call into the use case, and the use case will deal with what go forward actually means. Since some of those use cases implement interfaces, it's also nice that you can switch the implementation. So if you want, for some kind of reason, go forward to mean something else in your app, you can create your own session use case with your own go forward, and then it might do something else. We do use this in Firefox Preview in some areas where we want to do some additional things. For example, when you go forward. Okay, let's run this. And then let's navigate. Okay, it's disabled. Let me navigate back and forward. Back, forward, Awesome, works. Let's set a check mark here. Back forward navigation seems to work. Okay, what is the next thing we could do? Maybe context menu. That might be nice and maybe easy. Just looking at this code, I see we also need to implement stopping loading. Stop loading. Just to quickly show you what this means. If I load a page, sorry. Oh, I think the reload button is also something we need to fix. So what we did the first time when we started this project was to comment out all the old code, throw in the new code, and by that we broke a bunch of functionality, and since then we are slowly building up the things we broke again. That's why a bunch of things are broken right now. But this is all powered by the new component already, so we already managed to get rid of the old and get in the new, and now we need to wire up some of the things to also use the new component. Okay, maybe in this case continue with reload and stop first. And I assume they will end up in this area too. Add to home screen seems to be missing as well. Let's add all those things here. Let's list all them while we are in this click handler. Okay, where is the reload action? Refresh. False reload. Reload is stopped. Where else is calling this? Swipe to refresh. Let's see. Either this is disabled because it was buggy in the past, or we broke it. Let's add this to the list too, just to see. To refresh. And then let's see if it's broken or if it's just disabled in this build. I don't remember. And okay, so reload. And I think we can just use the same approach. We get to our components. This is a kind of singleton that we can access through any context. And then we say reload the current session. That's probably all we need here. Let's see. Okay, let's go to mozilla.org. And then we press reload. Yeah, the page reloaded. And now I might be able to also show you the stop functionality that we were missing before. While the page is loading, well, this one is loading quite fast. Let's go to The Verge. In the past, it used to be a great website that loaded slowly, but it unfortunately loads fast in Focus as well. Here, you can see the X. This is to stop the current page from loading. We broke this too, and yeah, it's commented out right here where we just were. So let's fix this too, and I assume it's the same thing again. We call into a use case, and we don't need to care about how we actually stop loading. We just tell it, this session that we are currently displaying here in this fragment, please stop loading this. Okay. Yeah, The Verge used to be a slow loading page, but they improved a lot, I think. And also, since Focus is blocking a lot of trackers, which are often in ads, this makes loading the Verge even faster. Okay, so let's stop loading. And looked like it stopped. What's a slow loading page? Let's maybe CNN. Let's press stop. I'm never sure if it's just still rendering what it got or if it really stopped. What is another slow page? Anyone in chat who knows a slow loading page? Let's see what autocomplete Huffingpost. There, press enter. Okay, that was super weird. Why does this not load at all? Stop. It immediately stops, but I'm not sure if it really stops. Let's quickly reload and see if it loads more of the page. Oh yeah, there's now a logo and a menu, and that didn't appear previously when I pressed stop, so I will just assume this works. And there will be a QA step at the end of this anyway, so let's see. We added stop, we added reload. We only need to look at, let's remove the reload here at the other caller. Was the swipe to refresh? Even though it's not functional right now, we can just replace this with the new code. Okay, and can go forward, is no longer needed, and there seems to be still someone calling go back. So let's see. Oh yeah, that is as I mentioned, probably the tablet UI. We can for now just replace this too, and we have a to-do to look at the tablet UI anyways. Okay, so we did the reload, we did stop, and we did back forward navigation. Maybe YouTube. Yeah, YouTube could be a good target too. Just need to be quick. Stop. Oh, I think I pressed reload already. YouTube. Stop. I'm not sure. Okay, there is someone else calling reload, and we removed reload. Uncheck changed. Listener. Oh, I see. I mentioned that focus blocks, trackers, ads. Sometimes this can break a page, and we have this nice toggle here where you can just disable this for now if you want to fix site, for example. And this also needs to reload the current page. So we will tell the engine, hey, stop blocking trackers, and then we reload the page. It should load with trackers. And so we need to, we need to call the new reload function here now. Let's see. What is the best way to get there? We are inside this view holder. Okay, this is a little bit funky. For now, we can get a context, get the components from the context. This is an extension method on context, which will get the components object from the application object. That's where the reference actually exists. And then we call reload. And then we also need a way to get to the session. By default, it will do it on the selected session already. But since the fragment at the moment has its own reference, something that we still need to clean up, I'm just asking the fragment for the session here. That's a little bit ugly, but there will be an opportunity to clean this up once the fragment no longer needs access to the session here. Okay. Thank you for the follow. All right, let's see if this button does what it should do. If I disable this now, it should reload the current page. Yeah, that happened. I'm not sure if you can see the loading bar on the stream. It's very tiny. Maybe you saw the page flash. Okay, cool. That seems to work. Let's quickly go to, oh yeah, somehow the back button does not work. I type on my keyboard in the emulator. Since we just looked at this tracking protection toggle, this counter here is something we need to fix too, apparently. This counts how many trackers have been blocked on the current page. And that's probably something we broke too. Let's add this as tracker counter. Okay, this could be something we fix next. But let's look at this callback here. Did we remove all of those hits? Can go forward, can go back. And reload. Yeah, seems like they are all gone. Yeah, let's continue with the next item. For everyone who hasn't been watching from the beginning, we are working on Firefox Focus. We are integrating an Android component from this repository. The engine component, we dropped it into Focus. It is kind of working again, but we need to fix all the things we broke by integrating this new component, basically code that still tries to access some of the old code that we stopped or commented out. Okay. Yeah, maybe let's look at the counter. But that might require more work. Or the request desktop side. Or the context menu. That's actually what we wanted to work on before we got sidetracked with like reload and stop, I think. So the context menu. Let's go to mozilla.org again. If I long press on this link, nothing happens, or long press on this image, nothing happens. What we expect to happen, I can show this in Firefox Preview maybe. Oh, back button working. Mozilla.org. I long press here, and we show this context menu where I can open this link in a new tab, in a private tab, copy this link, and so on. And for an image, there are other options like save this image, for example. Focus again had a bunch of custom code for that. Let's see if we can find some of that. Context, browser context menu, this stuff. This is the telemetry for it. Context menu, browser menu. browser context menu. Anyhow, I think we would prefer for Focus to have the same context menu code as Firefox Preview. And that is possible since there is, surprise, a component for that. Browser. No, not browser context menu. I'm sorry, it's the feature context menu, because it provides the feature of a context menu. So we can use this component, and then we only need to tell the component which kind of context menu items we want. By default, it already shows a bunch of them. And then we do not need to deal with that in Focus. And let's do exactly this. For that, let's switch over to the reference browser. Reference browser is an example browser that we build with our components. It's kind of a showcase or a template if you want to build a browser. And it's also a good resource to look at how certain components get integrated. And we can look into the browser fragment in the reference browser, and we need to go one level below that, the base browser fragment. The reason for that is in reference browser there are just multiple fragments that show web content, not only the browser, and therefore there's like this base thing. So what we need to do is similar to what we did with the other features. We wrap it in this view-bound feature wrapper so that whenever the views of the fragment go away, all things inside this feature get no, not inside the feature itself gets cleared as well, because the feature has references to the views, and then we want to get rid of the feature too. And let's look at the context menu integration class. So in reference browser there is a class that configures the context menu, and this is wrapped in this integration class. And let's quickly take a look at what we do here. So here we define what kind of context menu items we want to show. And this depends in reference browser on whether we are inside the browser or inside a custom tab. Like on Android, you have the option to, as a third-party app, you have the option to show web content in a custom tab that looks like your app. This custom tab is actually powered by your default browser, which can also be reference browser or Focus. And we might want to show different context menu items in this case. I think we will simplify this for now and use the feature directly here. And I think we might need to add the dependency first before we can do this, because I assume that was not used yet. Feature context menu, it's Gradle sync. Okay, that was a quick sync. Okay, now we should be able to autocomplete this here. That's the context menu feature. Nice. So we go to on view created. So whenever whenever the views for this fragment have been created, we can also create the feature because the feature needs access to the views. So on this wrapper, we set a new context menu feature instance, and let's see, what does this need? It needs the fragment manager. Is to show this dialog kind of thing. It's access to the browser store. That is the thing that has all the state in a Redux-like store, so that it knows when to show a context menu, because like things like a long press event will be in the store that it needs to react to. Then we need to have a list of candidates, that is menu items that we want to show. And there was a method that we can just steal, like this one. This will create a list of default candidates. This is all the things that the component itself thinks by default should show up. We can later try to customize this for Focus. The engine view, that's the thing that renders the web content. Then an instance of context menu use cases. Again, this wraps a bunch of functionality like we saw in Firefox Preview, an option like save image. And what save image actually does, that is defined by such a use case. And by providing those use cases, the implementation can be customized in the app. And for now, let's create an instance here. And let's see what this needs. It's a session manager. This is the old way of accessing the sessions instead of the store that I just mentioned. We haven't fully completed the migration to the store just yet, so right now you need both things sometimes. And the default candidates also need some things that we haven't provided yet. Tabs use cases, since it needs to do things with tabs at times, like open new tabs, for example. Let's create an instance here. Tabs use cases. Are we missing the feature for that? Feature, yeah. Need feature tabs as well, which yeah has a bunch of things if you need to manage tabs. What's in the chat? I want to learn that kind of stuff for Minecraft plugins. Would be cool, but every time I try to build an artifact, it gives me errors. Yeah. Hi, I've never built a Minecraft plugin. I think at least the original version was written in Java, right? So do you need to write Minecraft plugins in Java too? Okay, let's see. Did this sync? Yeah. Now we can create tabs use cases. And let's also make this lazy, like the other things in here. Tabs use cases. This needs the session manager. Okay. Okay, let's fix all those things here. So we need the context, require context. We need tabs use cases. The context menu use cases, and this already twice, so let's add this to our components class as well. In our other browsers, we actually divide those use cases or components over multiple component classes. That's maybe something we want to do here eventually too. For now, I will just add all of them to this components class. And then let's pass them in here, and we need the parent view. Interesting. This is probably the view itself. And then what else? The engine view, yeah, we provided this, and the components, the use cases again. Okay. The only thing that is red is the engine view here. Okay, because it is actually nullable. Let's for now use a double exclamation mark here. We need to fix this. This is something I mentioned in the last stream. Like, this fragment has a bunch of nullable view references, and this is pretty awkward, I think, since this is like dangerous for leaking those views. It looks like in Focus we never detach a fragment, but still scary. Okay, need to write Minecraft plugins in Java too. Interesting. Okay, there's something missing here. Oh yeah, this feature wrapper clears references based on whether the views of the fragment go away, and this is needs to know the lifecycle owner and the view for that. Okay, so this code is Kotlin, which also runs on a Java virtual machine, but it's not Java itself. It's probably a nicer version of Java. I'm not sure which version of Java you need for Minecraft, but on Android, kind of the base level is probably Java 6, with some newer Java features backported, but not the whole language itself. Okay, why is this still showing an error here? Let's see. Can we just run this, or is there an actual error? Looks correct. Gives you errors at this code. Well, from the chat it's pretty hard to see what's wrong. The semicolon after this looks pretty weird to me. Let's try something. I create a Java class here. Then I try to copy this over. Of course, all the things that need an import are not here, but okay. I copied this correctly, because this, like, first of all, needs only be inside here. Maybe this is just from the copy and paste. This kind of syntax I've never seen in Java, but as I said before, I'm kind of stuck on Java 6 with Android development. Maybe this is nowadays fine. Maybe you can define a parameter now in Java. I totally have no clue. In Kotlin you definitely can. In Kotlin it would be like this. You want to set a specific parameter. And this semicolon after this looks super strange to me. Like if this is valid syntax, then I would expect this semicolon to at least be gone. Not sure if this is going to help you. I tried my best without context. Okay, it looks like this actually ran and compiled. Yeah, okay. Let's see if it already does something. Go to mozilla.org. We long press this button. Wow, there is a context menu. And I want to share this link. Wow, so this is kind of the power of our Android components. Like we added kind of this block, defined the use cases here, added the dependency, and we have a fully functional context menu. Yeah, this is great. Let's quickly compare, or let's check if this actually works for images too. I don't think we clicked on an image here. Yeah, save image, commit, image location, looks good. Let's download Focus from the store. Because I just want to compare what kind of context menu options we actually had in the app. Since right now we just use the default from the components. IntelliJ said that it has to be like that. Yeah, maybe IntelliJ is right then. I guess what's more interesting than the code is also the error output of IntelliJ. Usually IntelliJ is also quite smart in telling you where the error is, or where a syntax error is. At least much better than Eclipse used to be. Okay, so this is Focus from the store. Now we need to make sure we do not accidentally test things in the wrong app. Oops, did I do? Is my emulator dead? No. Okay, let's kill all those apps. Try again. Sometimes the emulator is like freezing up. Go. Can't swipe this app. Okay, let's open Focus. Okay, it's super laggy. I hope it's not the app from the store. Did it just crash? Okay, it's really laggy here. And it crashed, wow. Alright, this means I can't test this right now. I can test on my phone quickly, but this means you are not going to see what I'm doing. So let's go to our dev build again. Let's just compare. Okay, options I see in Focus on my phone is open with app. That's an option we don't have here. Open link in new tab, we have that. Open link in private tab. Share link and copy link. Download link. Download link is nice, I guess. Share link is nice too. Copy. So what's missing is open with app, which is maybe more interesting in Focus because it's not a full-featured browser. And then of course we only have open link in new tab in Focus because all tabs in Focus are kind of private, so the distinction between new and private doesn't make sense here. Let's add this to our to-do list here. Open in app. Only one option to open in new tab. Private versus normal. Yeah. Since Focus, yeah, always removes your browsing history, there's no distinction between new normal tabs and new private tabs. Okay. But everything else seems to work. Let's also look at context menu for images. We have share image, copy image, address, copy image location, save image, open image in new tab. That's a new function. That is probably nice. Share image is also an option here that we might want to add to Focus. Let's see. Or re-add to Focus. Context menu, share image. Okay, but the context menu itself we integrated, so let's add a check mark here. What else could we work on? Maybe request desktop site. That might be a quick fix too. What is a good page that has different layouts? GitHub. GitHub is actually great. There is an option here for request desktop site. It reloads, but this does not look like a desktop site, and there's also the check mark missing here, which seems to indicate that we never switched to desktop mode. So let's see if we can find this. Let's find the on-click handler first. Okay, did I scroll over it without seeing it? Menu, display, erase, tabs, back, forward, refresh, stop, open, share, links, open, default, custom tab. Okay, for some kind of reason we are missing request desktop site here. So let's go to where we define the menu and find it from there. Menu view. New view. We click this, we go to the browser menu. And the browser menu is a recycler view. and it has an adapter, browser menu adapter. And it has a bunch of items. So share, add to home screen, find in page. Request desktop. Okay. Let's see when it inflates the views. That is request desktop check menu item. Yeah, this is this menu item. Okay. And on bind, it calls bind on the menu item view holder. So request desktop check item view holder. If one check changed, then we interesting. This only changes the URL right now. Oh, and it tells the fragment. Set should request desktop. Okay, this sets a preference. And then tells the view. Okay. I wonder why we saved this to a preference. This is something to figure out at some point. Let's make it working first. Let's see if this is also done in the session use cases. Yeah, request desktop site. So again, we do not need to care about how this actually works. We just call the use case. Let's see. Okay, we go to mozilla.org. No, wrong. We go to github.com. That's a better page. And enable request desktop. Yeah, this looks, I think, like the desktop page. And we saw this getting enabled, but now it's disabled again. So there might be something wrong here too. Let's check on another page if it's working. First, remove this session. What's another one where we can see the difference? CNN maybe? Doesn't look like it's actually loading. Hello? Okay, this is probably the mobile page. Let's enable this desktop. Yeah, and this looks like the desktop page. So the functionality is there, but we need to make sure this check mark or this checkbox is actually checked. Let's go back to the view holder. What defines whether this is checked or not? We go to the session and look into should request desktop site, which is implemented on as an extension method in Focus. Oof. I assume this was kind of a hack we needed originally in the beginning, where we did not have this in Android components yet. I think we can just get rid of this completely now and just access it on the session directly. There should be a desktop mode flag now. And this will automatically get set since we use the engine component now. Okay, this was used somewhere else. No, just an import. Get rid of the import. Okay, bunch of more usages. Let's find all of them. Set should request. Okay, originally this was handled by Focus itself, and then it needed to set this the next time those views are getting created. That should no longer be needed. Like, request desktop mode is now completely independent from whether we are showing this page right now or not, and will be persisted for this session too. Show add to home screen dialog. Okay, I'm not sure why this dialog needs to know about desktop mode, but we will just pass in the right flag. This was just an import. It's getting imported too and used here. This is the intent processor. Request desktop. Okay, it seems like a home screen shortcut can have a flag in the intent telling us whether we should always load in desktop mode. So we'll just set this on the session now. Should work the same. Okay, and now we can hopefully run this. Okay. Wrong window. Let's type here. Again, wrong window. Want to type here? Yeah. Okay. Go to. No, let's go to CNN again. Okay, let's request desktop side. Loads. Okay, this looks like a desktop side. And the flag is set. Nice. Let's remove the flag again. Yeah, and that's a mobile page again. Awesome. So this part is done now too. Let's see. One more thing, maybe. Maybe the tracker counter. I think the tracker counter could be tricky since I'm not sure whether we have tracking protection enabled. So even if it's working, it might show 0 right now. But we can try to see. First, I think we need to get the right value here and then we make sure that tracking protection is enabled. Yeah, let's start in the adapter again. So there should be an item for this. Menu item blocking switch. Okay. Happens if we create a view for that. Create a blocking item view holder. It's this one. And this one gets the numbers from trackers blocked in the session. Okay, and this seems to get its value from the right place already. So maybe the only thing we need to do here is actually enable tracking protection, and then we might see some values. So let's go to the engine provider. This is the thing that sets up the engine. And we call into this create engine from our components class. And right now we just pass in default settings. Let's see, there should be one for tracking protection. Tracking protection policy. I have to check reference browser again because I'm not sure what we actually set here in other apps. Create tracking protection policy. Okay, there seem to be some constants we can use, like recommended. Let's try this. Tracking protection recommended. Also set a to do here. Set correct value based on settings. Since the user can define what kind of tracking protection level they want to have enabled and also disable it completely, we need to make this dependent on the user settings. But right now we just care about the UI piece. So just enable any policy that does some blocking. Let's go to cnn.com. And let's see, still 0. That apparently did not work as we expect. Let's see again. It is looking at the right value, I think. When we create a view holder, we call into update trackers, and is it also, what's happening if we call bind on it? Do we actually call bind on it? Okay, who is calling update trackers? The adapter. Okay, who is calling update trackers on the adapter? The menu. Who's calling update trackers on the menu? Session observer. On trackers blocked. On trackers blocked. Okay, does this still get called? Who is this? This is a browser fragment, and the browser fragment is not a session observer. So let's go back to this thing. What is this? Session observer. Okay. Okay, we register session observer on this session. So I think that should actually work. So let's add a log statement here. I wonder if you ever get into this method with a tracker count. And okay, let's run this, and then let's also open a shell. Okay, let's load a page like CNN again. Okay, this is still the log we added last time that creates a session. Yeah, we don't see any trackers actually getting blocked here. It's another page we could go to. New York Times maybe doesn't get auto completed. Times.com. Okay, yeah, we never end up in this method. So let's go back to engine provider. Okay, we set the policy. Let's quickly look at the engine in reference browser again. I remember in the past we had some code that applied this policy later. Wonder if this is still needed. Let's look at this app request interceptor to make sure it's not there. No, that's not it. Let's search for policy in Kotlin code. Okay, settings, core. No, this looks like this is the only code. We create a policy here, pass this into the engine provider. Yeah. And we do this here too. We can try to set strict just to make sure one of them works. Could also look at Phoenix quickly if there's something else happening here. Policy. Phoenix is Firefox Preview, and our main new browser that is based on our Android components. Let's see, holder. the factory and the fragment for tracking protection policy. Call into this factory. It creates a policy. But at the end of the day, this is doing exactly the same. Either using one of the existing policies or creating custom one. Let's check again with strict enabled. Oh yeah, now we see trackers getting blocked. 14, 15, 16, 17. Oh, wow, so many trackers. 43, 45. Okay, that's it, 45. Oh yeah, okay. Antiview gets updated too. So this is working. We just had a policy set that somehow didn't trigger on cnn.com, I guess. But yeah, we still need to figure out which is the right policy. Basically what Phoenix does in this factory, that's something we need to do here too. And see, do we... Yeah, let's add this to our list of things to do as a sub item of the default settings. Set correct tracking policy based on users settings. Right. Yeah, I think that is enough for today. If anyone in the chat has some last questions about Focus or Android components, Firefox Preview, Android, and I'm happy to answer some quick questions. Otherwise, I think this is done. We have like done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items today. That is quite nice. If we can do 6 every day now, then we are done with the migration this weekend. That would be awesome. How can I contribute to these projects? That's a very good question. So let's see. Android components is the one I'm working on most of the time, so I will recommend working on Android components. First of all, we have this section here, and the most interesting one is probably those 2 links. We try to label items with good first issue or with help wanted. Those are great things to get started. Good first issue usually are super simple patches, and they mostly exist to help you getting started contributing to the project. The change in the code is sometimes not that interesting. And either you find an issue here that might be interesting. I have to warn you that sometimes issues can get just old over time. So we added maybe a help wanted label half a year ago, and maybe it's actually not something we want to do anymore. So always maybe leave a comment on an issue and ask, can I work on this? Is this still needed? Because we are super interested in helping you if you want to. And you can also join our Matrix channel, Android components, and then ask us on the channel, and you can ask me too on the channel. I will be happy to try to find some issues for you to work on. So ideally you have some Kotlin, Java, or Android experience. And for Android components, it's basically you import this whole thing into Android Studio, and there are a bunch of sample apps that will get you started. You don't need to understand the whole code base because there are a lot of things. Only focus on a small piece for the issue. And yeah, we are happy to give you hints. Then Focus for Android. We just looked at Focus. Focus is currently in a kind of maintenance mode, and we are currently trying to get this on those components, so I would recommend to not contribute to Focus at the moment. You can still check it out and work on the app and test the app if this is an app you like to work on, but I don't think we have the capacity to look at pull requests right now. The other option is Phoenix. It's Firefox Preview in the Android store. Also, there's a documentation about what to do with pull requests. This team is heavily focused on getting this app into a state that we can release it more broadly. So this team is also constrained on what kind of PRs they can actually review. So make sure you find something that is actually still needed and someone has time to look at what you're doing. Otherwise, you will open a PR that no one needs right now, and then it will not get reviewed probably, and then it's maybe wasted time for you, except for the learning experience working on this thing. Yeah, I hope that helped answering your question. Find an issue, and I think the Phoenix team also uses the same labels. Help wanted. Yeah, there are some issues flagged. Find one that you think you can fix, comment on the issue, join the Matrix chat and ask questions. And yeah, people will be happy to help you. You actually already opened some PRs, like on those repositories, then you probably already know all the things you need to know. Yeah, just get in contact and make sure if you want to land your things that you work on things that currently can get reviewed. Yeah. Okay. Thank you to everyone who watched today. If you enjoyed this, please press the follow button. I will try to make more episodes. I definitely would like to continue streaming about this project in Focus. That will probably take some more days to complete. And yeah, then if I will find something else that's kind of interesting, then I probably continue. All right. Thank you and see you maybe tomorrow. Let's see. Bye bye.